Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's start a little bit of a tangent to that.
Okay.
Um, what would you recommend as starting doing when developers have not yet published but want to build awareness?
Okay. So you're saying that they haven't published, but they still want to build awareness. So I'll go on a little tangent here. One thing I think is good. I mean, just in terms of like outside of paid, just doing whatever you can to promote your game and getting it out there. A good way for this is like Reddit. I wouldn't recommend Facebook on that sense because there's literally like no organic value in Facebook anymore, very limited. If you have a really big audience, then I would say probably post there. But
What,
otherwise,
what about like joining relevant groups? Like if
yeah, yeah,
genre
exactly.
specific stuff.
Yeah, groups are great. I would just be mindful of what people are posting, and also look at and what I mean by being mindful of that. Some groups aren't really what they seem to be, or it's just not really relevant, and you want to make sure it's relevant to not just your game or this. Or the genre of your game, but also like, are people just like commenting for the sake of commenting? Is it basically comes down to, is it providing value? The other one is obviously Twitter. A lot of people are there, whether it's from players, and there's a lot of things that you can get from by promoting your games to other devs too. A lot of people think, oh, I just want to focus on players, and yes, of course you do, but tapping into other devs, providing value to them, and they get excited about games too. I know a lot of devs that are very interested in other games that other indie devs, and while it might be a small portion, they're also interested there too in terms of purchasing other games and stuff because they're always trying to learn, and one way to learn is obviously to play other games. But Twitter's another good one. But in terms of going back to paid, and I apologize with that tangent, I somewhat distracted myself of the question you were asking in terms of like just I guess other ways to start out.
Yeah. What would you recommend starting doing when developers have not yet published but
Right.
want
Sorry.
to build awareness? Yeah.
So and the reason why I was saying about the organic efforts first is because by doing those things, even though you'd probably have a small data set, it gives you some insight in terms of, okay, where do I start? How do I start doing this from a paid perspective? Because if you go in without knowing anything, that's okay too. But if you can go in with as much information as you can possibly get, that's going to be a little bit more helpful. So, writing a Twitter post that all of a sudden, for whatever reason, got a lot of replies or retweets and stuff. There could be some information there that helps you make a decision in terms of, what my ad copy is going to look at. So for anybody just like starting out and not having, too much that they can go from with their game, like it's not available, they don't have a demo yet, I would say the best thing are going to be assets, or more specifically creative. And what I mean by that is, have a video at least available of some gameplay footage, have screenshots available that you can share. And because, well, the main thing with a lot of the advertising that we talked about before, the paid advertising, if you just have concept art, well, that could work, I'm sure. It's not going to be the same as really showing people what the gameplay is like. In screenshots in your ads and videos like trailers or even gameplay videos are going to be the best ways to do that. So making sure that you have those creative assets available so you can use that in your ad copy is going to be very helpful. And more specifically, especially at a high level, I would say probably go with video, because if you're just starting out, you might not necessarily have acquired all the funds yet to move forward at a level that you'd want to. Not only that, you'd probably want to maximize your spend further out closer to launch. So then I would, from just an awareness, high funnel type stuff, focus more on videos. Or you could also focus a little bit more on, generating an email list and building that up. And again, that's why assets are very important, creative, because you could take some of those assets, let's say you already have some music generated, you could use sound, some audio clips or specifically tracks from levels and use that as an incentive to get people to sign up for your email. So that's what I would do starting out, is probably focus on an awareness perspective, and if from a high funnel, and from a like more mid funnel, get people and feed them into your email list, because that's going to give you more people on board that want to learn more about your game, and it allows you a lot more control to interact with those people.
So, yeah, thank you. That's great. So it begs a question from me then. If you've, let's say you've got a couple of those videos up on YouTube, you've got your own website, and you've built, you've got some people have signed up to your Discord or signed up to your Facebook page, and you're doing this organically. How do you then ask them for their email? What's the best way to collect the emails from potential customers?
Yeah, no, great question. There's a few ways you can do this. One is making sure that you have a landing page designed to convert. Okay, so what does that mean? That means, one, let's say you're driving traffic to this landing page, and in doing so, you want to make sure that your messaging also relates to the messaging, or delivers what the messaging is saying in your ad on that landing page. Because if the messaging in your ad doesn't relate with the landing page, then basically it will throw users off, and it's really just not coming down to the best user experience. So that's the main thing. When people get to your landing page, if that's one of your main ways of converting users, you want to make sure that there's great content there. It doesn't have to be too in-depth or anything like that, but maybe have a footage or a gameplay video showing people what the game is actually like, having a strong call to action, and also, as I mentioned before, having like a incentive or lead magnet, as they can call it sometimes in terms of marketing. And what that does is it incentivizes users so they get excited about the gameplay, make sure it's like really good gameplay footage, have screenshots available too. Basically anything that you would do, like for anybody releasing on Steam, you want your best foot forward in terms of the images, the type of banner ad that you're using, things like that really do a good job of capturing people who are going there. And then with the incentive, we mentioned you could do like an audio track from one of your levels or something. It could be something like some type of other download, such as if you do have a demo of the game, you can go ahead and release that. Or what else? I mean, there's a number of different things you can do. You can even potentially do a quiz, as crazy as that sounds, especially if the quiz is relating to topics about your game. Like you were talking about, a war game. And if it's from a particular era, you can have a quiz of, let's say, hey, take our quiz. And then from that, in order to get the results or something like that, it's gated. And then they can enter their email address there. So there's a lot of different things that you can do on your own landing page. But the most that you want to do is have that call to action, have some type of incentive. It's not necessary, but it helps. And also
you could, like, for example, you could do a poll that says,
yes,
like, what's your favorite Second World War video game? Is it Call of Duty? Is it Commandos, etc.?
Yeah, you have to do that.
And then collect the email.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. But you also want to be mindful, and this is, again, why it's so important to get in the head of your audience, because you don't want to just provide something for the sake of providing it. You want to make sure that to your audience, to your core audience, or the people that are most interested in your game, that it's going to provide them value. And if you can provide them value, but also get them excited about the game, that's even better. And a lot of times people are like, well, I don't have the time to create some of these things. Well, what I tell a lot of devs in particular is, like, you already have a lot of assets available, generally do. And if you're like just starting out, give yourself some time to get some of these assets available. But you already have a lot of these things. Another idea is like an art book. If you have concept art or other art, you could put together just a PDF file of an art book. But the important thing is it's definitely it's going to help in conversion rate if you have some type of incentive to get people there. Taking this one step further, outside of, let's say, directing people to a landing page that's designed to convert well, we mentioned earlier lead ads. At least with Facebook, you have these. And what they can do is you can provide basically all like kind of a similar structure, but it's all delivered in the messaging. And what this does is people get interested, and then you say, hey, if you want this, music track, then just provide your information. And what's really nice about lead ads is simply the user, because all their information is already in Facebook, they just click one button. It auto populates that information, like with their email address. And then afterwards, it just says a thank you prompt, and then it can direct them to a page where that asset is available. Or you can then take that user email information, put it into whatever you're using, like something like MailChimp or whatever. And when they get a welcome email, that asset could be available for them to download.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's really clear.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick break from this. Hopefully you're really getting a lot of value out of this particular episode. And if you want more of this type of style of interview and the insight and expertise that's being shared, then by all means, if you haven't already, check out businessofindiegames.com. That's where the digital summit is. Check out all the other industry veterans and established devs that are going to be providing really insightful content about the business of indie games. And if you like what you're hearing today, there's just that much more of it available on their site. You can get full access to those interviews by just signing up. And make sure that when you do, to use the promo code I mentioned earlier, which is IGM, that gets you 20% off of full access to these interviews. The summit happens from December 9th to the 13th. You can sign up now or anytime. So please make sure you take a moment, check out the site, use the promo code IGM, and get that 20% off. If you like what you're listening to today, then you're definitely going to like what all the other interviews provide. So with that said, I'm not going to bug you anymore about this at all. So please continue listening to the rest of the show. And again, thanks for listening to Indie Game Movement.
So you also mentioned, I think to Nicola actually, ways earlier ways to start for as little as $5 a day to get data. Can you share a bit about that?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, like you can, when collecting data and stuff, you can do so with very little money, and specifically as low as like $5 a day. Now, and what that means is, and what that allows you to do is, I would only go in though, if you're doing that, I would only go in from a data collection standpoint. If you're looking to say, oh, for $5 a day, I'm going to hopefully get all these leads and everything, well, that most likely may not happen. It can, but you want to go in with the right mindset, with the right expectations. But for as little as $5 a day, you can run an ad. Again, Facebook is going to use their best judgment possible to serve that ad to the people they think is the best person to view that ad and is more likely to take an action, whether it's a click or whatever your objectives are for that campaign. So, and what that will do is, even though it's still going to be a small data set, it's going to be a lot more information that you can get, like I mentioned before, from demographic information, interest information, behavioral information, like all that data you can collect from these. Yes, it's not going to be as much information as you would probably like with only $5 a day, but it's going to be a lot more than simply you guessing or assuming by, oh, I know people in my audience visit this type of like forum or website or whatever. You're going to get a lot granular information that will help you with developing your audiences and tailoring your messaging and all other, and helping with all other efforts with your marketing efforts.
Thank you. Now, email signups you can get for $1 each. Is that right?
Well, so I remember us talking before, and that was a figure I mentioned. But I would say you can go as low as $1 each. In some cases, you can even go lower, and in some, you can go higher. It's really a case-by-case basis. There's a lot of factors at play.